second take. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Industry Executive Summary. With me today, I have the accurate Manu Rosier. Dave is still gone this week. We had some really good conversations last week with Patrick, but welcome back, Manu. Were you on vacation?
Yeah, I was off a small trip to the Belgian coast, the famous Belgian coast.
Okay. Anything noteworthy to share?
No, just fun, time with family, and a little bit offline. Not that much, but a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, a question that some people ask me to ask the guests is like, okay, are you playing anything right now? Is there anything we should be paying attention to from a gaming perspective that's on your radar?
I finally finished the F3 DLC from Elden Ring, so this is closed now. I have on my list car manufacturer, which is like a simulator of building cars. I want to try. And then I still have to try the first Descendant. I also have a little game which is called Deadly Days, which is a kind of a zombie roguelite type of game where you manage a team of a few people, and then you die and you restart and you get better equipment. So I just have a few indie games to test this day, I would say. No big AAA on my radar for now. I'm waiting for Wolong.
Yeah.
20th of August. That's probably going to be the big one I'm going to play.
I'm going to Gamescom in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And this trip, I decided to have more open spots that I'm reserving to actually walking around the halls and checking out some games. And I'm sure Wulong's going to be there. When you mentioned Descendant, is that the Korean game?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the looter shooter, or which one is that one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the looter shooter. Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. Cool. Then shall we jump into the news and see what you have cooked for us this week? I'll share my screen while I ask you. So on the highlights, the number one item you've put there is, and I'm actually not necessarily surprised, but it's gonna change some things, ripple effects on other game developers rather. So Fortnite ends exclusivity for future battle passes. So if I understand this correctly, and please correct me, this means any content in the battle pass itself, they want to be able to extract and sell separately on the store. Is that correct?
Yeah, but not before 18 months after the end of the season. So it's not like instantly. It's just they will unlock it at some point in time, the content. It's not locked forever, opposite to the current, the previous battle passes. So it kind of reduce the value, the perceived value of the battle pass, which I think is interesting in the context of Apex also trying new things, as we saw a few weeks ago. I think there is a fatigue of generic battle passes systems, and I think everybody's kind of rethinking the whole formula and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I wonder, for each game, is the battle pass more of an engagement mechanic or more of a monetization mechanic? And it seemed, for example, for Apex, they are going the way where they want to monetize more by splitting the battle pass. Fortnite might be the opposite, and I don't know. It's very interesting because at the same time, if you don't have to rush to unlock the items that will be exclusive, then engagement could also drop, right? So there could be a negative effect on both monetization and engagement. But maybe they will push for more like event passes, like not like the seasonal battle pass, but more the small ones of a few days or a few weeks where you have. I'm not sure they've mentioned anything about this kind of events, if it will also be ending exclusivity or not. So that's also maybe where they are going to.
I believe Apex had some event-based, like once or twice a year. Like there was a specific thing separate from the regular battle pass. But you know what's interesting, Manu, about Fortnite specifically and Epic? I mean, they obviously took the battle pass system and just ran away with it in terms of owning it, in terms of like you look historically speaking, from a visual perspective, presentation perspective, content perspective, they've experimented a lot in comparison to other game companies that might not have taken note. When I was working on Arrowhead's Helldivers 2 with my team on the Battle Pass, we were looking at what other companies are doing, and we noticed specifically Fortnite how they change things up from time to time, either from a way to experiment and maybe potentially offer better value. By the way, based on what you described, in tandem with the subscription that they have, both my kids are subscribed. What is it called again? Let me just. It's Fortnite Crew.
Yes.
My son actually approached me a couple days ago, and he told me, "Dad, I don't think we need Fortnite Crew anymore." He's 8, by the way. And I was like, "That's interesting." Like, okay, he has so much junk. He has so much stuff.
Yeah.
That he's just like at a point, and this has been for like a year and a half. So we've been subscribing for a year and a half, and now he's at a point where I don't need more stuff. But I would love to have your take on that.
Interesting. Usually my kids would say that I don't need a subscription when they stop playing the game for a while. It's more about that. It's more like, yeah, we've shifted to another game. I have now my 40-year-old son telling me that Fortnite is for kids and he doesn't want to play it anymore, which I find interesting, because then where is he going after where does a teenager go after Fortnite? I think that's kind of an interesting question to ask also for Epic, because it's potential churn from their portfolio if a kid gets too old somehow. I don't know. I think there is also this element of conveniency for parents to subscribe to a Fortnite Crew, because it means that they don't have to answer to any requests from their kids about getting more coins. You get the subscription, you get about 1,000 coins per month, and you handle that, right? You manage your coins as you want. So, which is a different story than just saying I have too many items anyway. But I don't know. For me, the subscription system is quite convenient when you are paying but not playing, let's say.
Manu, for me, what I'm looking at is that I feel like the evidence is compounding further and further, especially with this new story about Fall Guys coming to Fortnite now, and I'm not sure what this means exactly. You'll tell us. But the idea of Epic is not building Fortnite. What they're building is a metaverse. And they want to have, and obviously we saw last year, I believe it was, when they added what's the card game called again? The soccer card game.
Rocket
League, thank you. So they added Rocket League or elements from Rocket League, but they're not far off from just integrating all these games that they have purchased into the same platform, same space, where you have all the content, you share the friends list, everything you need is in one place. You don't have to leave. But I would love to get your take both on the Fall Guys coming to Fortnite, but also overall on what I just said.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem, right? But the thing, I mean, if you look at the type of games, Epic has integrated Rocket League. They have kind of integrating Fall Guys, but it feels like they are piling up games for the same audience. It's not really that they are expanding the audience with this experience. They still, I think the target audience is like young teenagers, and they don't have anything right now for more mature and grown up players. So I don't know what are their plans, and it's not a partnership with Lego that's going to change that. And maybe with Disney, maybe with the partnership with Disney, they will come up with something a bit more mature, using some of the heroes from Disney. But right now it's just piling up games for the same audience.
I do see some similarities to Lego. Like the actual real life bricks. They have a lot of Disney stuff around. They have a lot of Nintendo stuff. They even have like sets for what's that game called? Horizon, not Horizon. Sorry.
Zero Dawn.
No. Well, they have that as well. I'm thinking more about the. Good lord! Now I'm looking. Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is the one. And then the list goes on. They have Sonic now. They have a lot of car brands. They have so many things. Like from an IP perspective, in there, it feels like they are building the same thing outside or in the real world rather. And now they're also trying to do more in the game side, even though they've had like the Lego Star Warses, the Jurassic Parks, etc. But it seems like they want to do more from their own IP, which is also interesting.
Yeah, they're still missing a lot of IPs from video games, right? Pokemon is not with Lego. Also, Lego doesn't do anything military related, so they wouldn't do anything Call of Duty or that kind of game. So, but I mean, Lego, they understand that the more they can offer in their catalog, the more people they can reach, because there will always be a set that resonates to you, right? Because they're so broad now that it could be an old Atari game console, it could be a Zelda something or a Mario. They're going everywhere, and we even had Star Wars, the robot from Fallen Order, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, also there.
So, by the way, I don't want to linger further on this specific topic, but if Lego wants to invest more in video games, but at the same time they've provided the Lego, I don't know the name of it now, the Lego verse inside of Fortnite. I mean, does that in any shape or form, let's say, hinder their long-term plans or ambitions rather?
Just Epic is kind of the middleman and building the experience for them in the same way that other studios have developed Lego games. So I think as long as they don't really have their internal developing team for video games, I think it's probably fine. And I think the portal of Epic and Fortnite is the easiest one to reach their core audience. So I don't think neither is an exclusivity. I think they can still develop other games, probably outside of Fortnite.
Speaking of, by the way, Lego and Fortnite, this I saw recently in stores. Fortnite sets, Lego sets in Fortnite. Fortnite Lego sets in the real world, not in the game, which is very interesting. We'll see how that, how these, like, the mergers of sorts, I feel like, in a way, or the bridging between the digital and the physical. Remember when Toys to what are they called again? Toys to Life or digital toys? What are they called again? The ones that we used to have, but not anymore. The Activision Blizzard Dragon stuff. That Disney tried to do it once. Lego tried to do it, I believe, at one point. Toys to Life, I think, right? Here we go. I mean, we're talking about, Amiibos still exist. Not sure how much, but Skylanders is probably the big one, the old one. Disney Infinity, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see a resurgence of that, considering Lego and Fortnite partnership?
No.
Okay, toys.
The same like Skylander and that kind of stuff. I don't really think there's going to be a resurgence of like physical toys for within a video game. I think Ubisoft tried that some time ago with Nintendo. I think there was like some kind of Mario Kart in augmented reality or something, but never heard of it since then. So I'm not sure. I think also you have to sell these items, and it's completely different business. Know that also video game companies they don't have so much logistic as before because they are not selling so many game boxes anymore, right? So if they would come back to, let's say, retail and that kind of stuff, I don't know. I'm not sure. They want to go full digital for everything.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move on to the next highlight. Sorry, I had an ice cube in my mouth here. And this we've seen this throughout the week, and Game Informer has closed down. And your highlight this week is Game Informer editor-in-chief says goodbye after GameStop deletes previous message. I'm not sure what that's all about.
I mean, there are ways to close business, right? And we only know what we can see. And the reality is the way they did it was probably not very graceful. Let's put it that way, because they kind of instantly deleted all the content of the website, all the archives, everything disappeared. And the Twitter account was also instantly deleted, right? Like it's almost like this Game Informer that has been alive for 30 years, and I think has been very important for many gamers, maybe more in the US. This like disappear, right? It's like almost never existed. So there probably were other ways to kind of shut that down. Maybe it makes probably sense from an economical standpoint, right? If it's not making money, and we know GameStop is also looking at their bottom line. But yeah, I don't know. It's not great for the GameStop brand, that kind of event. Let's put it that way.
Well, GameStop is an interesting company. We'll see if it survives. It's interesting that it's still surviving, by the way, but we'll see if it continues to survive. You know, Game Informer used to be one of those, I mean, especially the covers of the magazine, both that one. What's the one in the UK? Is it called Game? Is it called Game Magazine? I forgot the name of it. I think it was called. I think, and also, yeah, it's a huge one. I forgot the name of it. But anyways, there's a couple outlets, like historically speaking, or they've had a lot of impact on the industry. It was one of these places where people would, like game developers, had in high regard in terms of like, if your game is on that cover, then that is like a significant thing. Obviously, it doesn't matter as much these days, but I would love to, if you have any historic or thoughts about Game Informer and such magazines' impact on culture, like importance, if at all. What's your thoughts there?
I'm an old gamer, so I was gaming before the internet. So the only way to hear about games was through magazines. And I think what was great at that time was when you had demo disc with the magazine. So that's how you also discovered games.
PC Gamer used to have, or still maybe having, demos.
Yeah, probably. And I think even like PlayStation magazine or that kind of stuff probably at some demo CDs at some point, or DVDs at some point. But people that are born today, it's a weekly or a monthly release is kind of difficult to survive in any shape or form. And who's really still going to a store, or I don't know what you call that, not a library, but you know, where you can buy a magazine in physical shape. So I don't know. It's a
shame in a way.
This is debatable. It's the same debate with should you have a paper books, or could everybody go to Kindle? I think with time, in 1 or 2 generation, like paper is probably not going to be used that much anymore.
No.
But yeah, as long as there are people that enjoy it, still going to be there. But I never see my kids reading any piece of news on paper, right?
We are relics at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the news items then. Humble Games latest release says it has lost access to the pipeline of critical systems. So this one I actually found myself, and I do have some comments on it. I'd love to get your take as well. I mean, obviously, Humble Games publishing division and maybe other spaces as well have been impacted. They let go a lot of people. And then you have games they've had in the pipeline or have previously been released, don't have access to tools or things that used to support them in their games, which I'm not surprised about. But I'm very curious to hear your thoughts there as well.
I mean, yeah, that's crazy, but it depends what's in the contract, right? If you shut down a company, and I think it's also a bit related to the news about in trends. There is a petition right now in Europe, and if it got 1 million signature, they would ban rendering multiplayer games unplayable. So it's kind of what happens next, right, with digital content? What happens if the studio closes, if the servers close, if the publisher disappear? And I think when you buy digital goods like that, I think it's of course in the contract that you lose the content if anything happens, but maybe there is a way to protect.
This is interesting, by the way. Manu, you know how we have libraries these days, or we still have libraries, like physical libraries.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's going to be one of those, because physical libraries, at least in Sweden, I'm not sure, I'm assuming it's the same thing in other countries. I mean, the state is the one who's funding and making sure that these libraries exist. And I'm wondering now if this should be the same thing, where the state makes sure that, dying medium can exist somewhere.
Yeah, I think you have private initiative like abandonware websites that would put the ROM of all the games, but there is nothing like official for that, or I'm not sure there is any foundation or anything like this. Yeah, that's we'll see where it goes, but I think having like single player games that are online only and then not being playable at some point because the server are closed, I think that's not great. It's not a player first kind of approach, right? You're all like online games, single player online games when there is no multiplayer but you still need to connect. It's kind of a strange approach. I think it's the easiest approach these days because most of the games are like that, but it's not good for the consumer in the end.
Absolutely. Jumping over to the next item then. Microsoft Auto Super Resolution tested. A new AI upscaler has arrived. So if I understand correctly, there is a new AI upscaler that makes games look better. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, I think this is the idea. I think right now you have AMD and NVIDIA that have their own technology like the DLSS and I can't remember the name of the AMD one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Microsoft is maybe coming with something different with also different processor. Like it would work on processor and not on gaming video cards. So yeah, I mean Microsoft is also far ahead in AI related development. So let's see. I think it's good to have some competition, and maybe tomorrow, if they can have that technology and reduce the need for expensive graphic card, that's probably also interesting for the consumer, right?
I just found a video here from Digital Foundry. I love Digital Foundry, by the way. So I'm sure if you go to their YouTube channel, for those who are listening in, you'll find a YouTube video called Microsoft Auto SR Tested. Check that out. It's pretty substantial, I would say, especially for an older game to look sharper, look smoother. That's very interesting.
Could be like a remaster technology, right? Like free remaster technology somehow.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
no,
any technological advancement that reduce the monopoly or the duopoly is always interesting for the consumer.
cool. Okay, let's look at the next item. I didn't know about this one. This is interesting. Microsoft and Activision have formed a new team within Blizzard to work on smaller games based on existing IP.
Yeah.
I'm confused at the same time as I'm very interested in hearing more.
Well, let's remember, I think a few weeks ago, we talked about that topic I really like to talk about is everything nostalgia. Gaming audience getting older. And I think that's the idea. I think they are probably looking at their deep back catalog, looking at some IPs that could be brought back somehow without that they need to spend 100 or 200 million to develop a AAA game. I think that's the idea. It's feels like a bit like quick wins. You don't have to create a new IP. You just reuse the new IP, so you save money in marketing, in awareness, and you already have like a baseline fan base somehow. And then you come with something new, and it can be a mobile experience. It can be more of an indie experience. But I think it makes sense, and it's probably not the only publisher that are thinking about how can they leverage their treasure chest of old IPs that are maybe that haven't seen any new game in the past 10 or 20 years.
Well, what's interesting here, this is what stood out to me here. Over the past few weeks, many King employees had switched their LinkedIn profiles from King to Blizzard. Now, for those who don't know, King is in Stockholm, and King is a company that focuses on mobile games. So I'm not sure if this is any indicator that they're gonna focus these IPs on mobile, or if it's smaller, games on other platforms as well. But it's interesting.
And I think it's interesting because before Activision was bought by Microsoft, the strategy was really to bet on only a few big IPs, right? They were not doing so many side games, side work. But maybe Microsoft has bought everything, right? All their portfolio of IP, and they might be cherry picking in there and say, well, maybe that one could be relevant again today. So it's good. It's interesting, I think.
Now I'm just confused over why they closed down a company like Tango Gameworks, who did produce a smaller type game.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We'll see where this goes. Moving on to the next item. Super Social and Bandai Namco launch Pac-Man Simulator on Roblox. Roblox is getting a lot of different IP, like similar to what's happening on Fortnite. Roblox is also getting different brands and IPs that are trying to do something for a younger audience. Any thoughts about this?
I think the difference maybe is with Fortnite, you have a lot of partnerships with other gaming IPs, but it's mostly about cosmetics most of the time. And there is partnership with Uncharted. It's more about a skin and maybe a few features in the game, but no more than that. While here, it's really a complete experience. It's basically now you can play Pac-Man within Roblox officially without having like a Wish version of Pac-Man in Roblox. So I think that's also the maybe Bandai Namco they realize that they need to be present with a younger audience. They need to train younger audience to know their brand. So it might just be a brand awareness operation at this point. And it doesn't mean that the next Metal Gear is going to be in Roblox, right? But maybe it means that they could also have like a Roblox version of Metal Gear somehow. So it opens the door to many possibilities. But yeah, I think Roblox used to be a place where there was a lot of creation, unofficial creation, let's put it that way. But now we see that more and more brands just want to be there officially, and they want the players to be exposed to the real brand and not a copy.
Like a knockoff or like a second tier. I know Sonic, probably a lot of Japanese manga, anime type characters on Roblox, exactly. Unofficially, so to say. but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm moving on to the next item then, which is I didn't even know this game is coming to console. By the way, Valorant is now on consoles, and they have a beta that's open to all players. Speaking of expanding the audience.
Yeah, I mean, it makes totally sense, right? But I've not really seen if it's successful or not. But it's normal for them to be there, and I think it happens often that like some games, shooters or games from coming from Asia, they would start with PC, they would make the game right, and then they would expand to console when they consider that the game is polished enough and it's good enough to go on console. That's a possibility. Or maybe they run out of player on PC, right? And that's also you never know if it was always the plan or not. Maybe they said it. Maybe I don't have that information, but it's they are still talking of a surprise launch, right? So it was not really expected that it would come so quickly out of the closed beta and into more of an open beta. But why not? I think Valorant is still a very strong competitor to Counter-Strike and to games like Overwatch also. It might struggle a bit more to find audience on console. Let's put it that way.
That's interesting. The number one competitive corridor shooter, Counter-Strike 2. If we look at Valve, historically speaking, who has or did bring some of their games to consoles, and since maybe Portal 2, I think maybe it was the last one, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a call here. I'm still surprised that Counter-Strike is not on console, as an example.
Yeah. I think sometimes it feels like Valve don't bother, right? They
don't care.
At some point they're like, okay, now we're gonna build some new games because there's a lot of noise right now about Half-Life 3, maybe finally some other stuff. But it feels like they are busy with other stuff, and for them releasing more games, it's their side business, a side gig, right? The main business is the Steam platform. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay, cool. Then let's move on to the trends. So you already touched on this one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about the petitions, but preservation of games. The second item is this is an interesting one. Disney, Hulu, ESPN, and we're talking about their digital service. They will all get a price hike this fall. We've already seen, Netflix done multiple ones over the past 5-6 years, maybe. What's your thoughts about this?
Where does it stop, right? I'm like everybody's gone. It's always maybe $1, $2, $3, $4, $5. It's not huge, but when you add up everything, if you want your I mean, we discussed about Game Pass a few weeks ago also.
Yeah.
It's more about piling up, right? How far does it go? Now, I think what's interesting, at least in Europe, with Amazon Prime, you can have the basic subscription that's also give you the free delivery for Amazon product. But then you can add layers of subscription. You can add Max, you can add Hulu, you can add different, I think Warner, Paramount Plus, everything. So Amazon, for me, while the app in itself is really not great from technical standpoint, and the streaming is not at the Netflix level, streaming quality, this is what I see as the future of streaming. It's more like one big portal where you can get in or out of different subscription tiers, but they are all increasing, so you still have to make choice. And I think maybe the next step is going to be like a package of subscriptions. That could be a thing. But as I was also sharing this morning, something very interesting. Can you share maybe that on the screen? The one
which one?
Text broken promises.
Yes, absolutely. I will open that one up and share it.
Very ironic.
Let me see here. The problem is, they want me to go ad-free, which I will oblige. Give me 1 second. Trying to get that up. Oops. Let's see if we can get that to work. Otherwise, I'll just take a screenshot and fake it.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. So, God damn it, Business Insider. Why do you have to be this hard? I will take a screenshot.
Okay.
Yeah. Here we go. So, why can't this be much easier? Let's see. Here we go. Snipping tool.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Of professional management of the screen on the go. So yeah, streaming is becoming as expensive and confusing as the cable. Uber costs as much as taxis, and the cloud is no longer cheap. So all the promises of like we're gonna be freed of the chains of the old technologies and old business models, well, the chains are coming back in a different shape, and then they are getting as expensive as before. So has our life really improved based on that, or are we coming back to the same problem? You know, we also thought with streaming we would get rid of advertisement, but now we still have streaming tiers with advertisement. So you're like, I think it shows maybe that it's some business model are just not viable, and they are being set up and they sell the promise that it will work, but in the end, bottom line, it doesn't work, and they are losing money until they start raising the price to a level that it's not so interesting anymore for the end customer. So maybe as customer, we lie to ourselves into thinking that there is a world where you can have very cheap entertainment, but the reality is that maybe not. And the cheap entertainment is only a temporary situation. Maybe that's something.
I do want to, Manu, while you're speaking, I was thinking about this service. This is an Arabic service for the MBC group. The MBC group is probably one of the biggest Arabic channels. Their subscription called Shahid, it actually lets you watch both live TV and it has that catalog of movies and other content. To my knowledge, is there anybody else in the West doing that, like having live TV bundle? Because you mentioned, like, we're almost back at that space where, okay, is this like, am I back to, the pricing ranges of the old days and cable?
Mm-hmm.
What's the thoughts there? Because I don't think we do have that, the marriage between live and.
Well, you have paid live channel where you can have access to the program offline, right? So it's not exactly the same, but now all channels have that kind of feature, that you can watch when you want what has been live content. I don't know. For me, it's really getting messy, and I'm like, okay, I want to watch what is it? House of the Dragon. So I subscribe for so many weeks to Max, and then I want to watch some other TV show. I subscribe to Apple TV for so many months, and you start kind of juggling with the different in and out.
Yep.
And it's like you're like, I don't subscribe for 1 year because I want to have interesting content for 6 months afterwards. So I don't know. It's becoming and I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it pushed people to go back to piracy, because it's getting too expensive.
It's becoming a mess,
right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. Here's a solution that I've seen, or at least works for me, because I am an Apple user mainly, and I have the Apple TV. So subscribing and canceling the subscription is really easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned, I think in the last month, I mentioned that, if there is something I want to watch that I don't have a subscription to, okay, it's like $6, $8, whatever it is. Cool. Subscribe, binge the show or whatever it is, and then I'm done and move on. What's interesting, by the way, Manu? Sometimes, and this is also like a fault of the Apple service, sometimes there's a movie, like let's say there's a movie I have in my mind that I want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I search for the movie, it displays all the options.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I'm at a point where there's two options. Rent the movie for like 24 hours for, let's say, $4 from Apple directly. Or pay, let's say, $6 and get a full month of, I don't know, if it's if it's Netflix or if it's like via Play or whatever it is, which is interesting in terms of like they're competing against each other, but they're making that option available. That's one. But two, I feel like they're making loss on the sales, or in a way.
There's probably a space for someone to say, I want to watch this movie. I make a search. They tell me where it is available at what price, and then they instantly stream it if I want to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't force me to then install another app, but just within that app, it would be kind of like a GOG, something like that, but for streaming.
That would be amazing.
I wonder, and it would be interesting for streaming companies too to have that redirected. I don't know. There's something in there that would simplify the life of the consumer and still directing to where he can buy the content in an easy way.
Okay. Now I have a cat here who's not letting me work. The next item is very interesting to me specifically because I'm a huge Dead Space fan myself. I'm also thinking about a specific creative person who is, in my opinion, a bit underrated and not talked about enough. He's an artist. Glenn Schofield used to work at EA, Visceral, worked on the concept and actually delivered Dead Space 1, 2, and maybe even 3, quit, started a new studio, sold it to Activision, and that entire journey. Started a new studio, made Callisto Protocol, that cost 4 times as much as Dead Space. I think Dead Space was like 40 million, if I'm not mistaken. So that puts Callisto Protocol at 150, 200 million, which makes no sense to me personally. But anyways, the article here says, needed 3 more months of work and wasn't meant to be a one and done. The discussion we had was look at The Witcher. I'm confused, but I'll let you give your take.
I think if it's 160 million budget for a single player horror game, that's very expensive, and there's no way they can sell enough units unless they are maybe Resident Evil. But even a Resident Evil game would make 7-8 million, and no more than that. So I don't see how it works from a linear perspective. But maybe they, within the cost of the first one, there was already cost for financing the next ones, right? Once you have
tooling and all that stuff,
you can reuse a lot of assets, but then they stop after one, so you can't make money. I think when you have a new IP and you're looking for financing, it's always interesting to not look at the profitability of the first game, but more look at the profitability of maybe a trilogy in 5 years or something like that. That's another approach to look at the profitability of an investment. And then the fact that it was released 3 months too early, they needed another 3 months. I'd say often they always need 3 months more, right? It's like when does it stop? And I don't know. There's always a discussion between the people actually spending money to fund the game, and then the people that are doing it. And when there is a disconnect between the two, you have that kind of result.
We haven't spoken about, but this happened last year. Obviously, Glenn Schofield left the studio. I'm not sure if the studio is still alive or if they closed the studio down, which it is a shame in a way.
Yeah.
But I think, you know what I'm confused about, like today, with today's technology and availability, I'm trying to speak correctly here, availability of tools and engines and all that stuff, you don't need $160 million to deliver a Dead Space type game. That makes no sense at all. And you know what's interesting to me now that I'm thinking about Resident Evil specifically, they've had the history behind them, and like they can just go back into that well and just like revive things, and they have a huge fan base. They didn't start making games that cost $160 million. They made games that cost maybe maximum $10-20 million, and then slowly worked their way. And even maybe I'm assuming you have to let I think you know this better than me. But I'm assuming the latest Resident Evil games don't cost more than 40, 50. If even that. Maybe 20 even? Dare I say that? Would that be correct?
I would say more than that, but I don't know. I'm not really expert in that kind of thing. But it comes back to the discussion we had a few weeks ago, is that which studio is going to put or which publisher is going to put 100 or 200 million on the table for a new IP in the current environment. I think a game like Callisto Protocol would never be greenlit today.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I think they've changed, and we see the struggle of for new IPs, right, to be successful.
I'm seeing a community note here saying that Resident Evil 4 Remake might have been at the $100 million mark. I don't think that is true, but it would be interesting if that was the case.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next item then. Let me see here. We already talked about Fall Guys coming to Fortnite. Ready at Dawn, 20-year-old studio and developer of the Order 1886, shuttered by Meta. Wait,
yes.
Was Ready at Dawn owned by Meta?
Yes, they were doing VR games.
What? That's crazy.
Yes.
I mean the Order 1886, by the way, such an unrated game. It didn't get the time it needed to get to the final like thing that made it like, but the game it's an amazing game, by the way, but nobody talks about that.
It's a 5-hour game for $70.
Yeah,
that was the biggest problem. It could have worked if it was twice as long or if it was cheaper, but I think the combination of the two. It was a technical showcase at the time of the launch of the PlayStation 4.
Absolutely.
But the studio has moved far away from that, right? In like 10 years or so, and they were doing like compelling VR games, but we saw also the news about Meta not being happy about their VR push. They are not doing a lot of successful pushes lately, and now they're just shutting down. Maybe that studio would have shut down before, if it didn't have the fund and the sponsoring of Meta to build VR games that are potentially just there to sell systems and not really profitable as such. So, that like another one. Like it's a trend. Every week there is another studio closing. But I think I remember the name Ready at Dawn, even if I have not heard about their VR games. But I remember what they did 20 years ago.
For those who haven't played the Order 1886, I wouldn't say it's going to change your life, but I would say it is a game that people should try out, at least in our profession. It was at a certain level that I was very, very surprised.
The art direction was great. The gameplay was not amazing, but the setting and the world they created, it's a bit of it's a lost opportunity not to build on that world.
Absolutely. I think Sony owns that IP? Doesn't Sony own that IP?
Maybe.
If I'm not mistaken, because it was a PlayStation exclusive. Okay, but by the way, sorry, is Meta? If I remember correctly, was Meta downsizing VR investment, or did they?
They just look at their investment and they realize it's costing a lot of money and it's not delivering. So the next step, usually, when you after witnessing that, is that you reduce the cost if you cannot increase your revenue.
Gotcha. Okay. Then I'm moving on to the rumors. There's two of them. Like a Dragon fans buzz at as Sega trademarks Yakuza Wars. So we might see another Yakuza game, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
No comments on that.
I think the whole Yakuza and Like a Dragon IP is very interesting. It's been building up. I don't think it is broken completely to mass market, right? Like to Red Dead Redemption or to GTA, but I think it's or like From Software with Elden Ring. But maybe there is a path to selling 10 or 20 million units at some point with some game that would resonate to a more global audience than just kind of Asian and Asian interested gamers or like Japanese.
Absolutely. I think it has a really, really strong core base that they cater to, and they continue to cater to, which is probably the key here of them being so successful the past, I don't know, 5 years, let's say, of continuously delivering Yakuza style games.
And the quality is there, right? I think the quality has been stable and improving through the years. It's not like that a lot of bad games. It's just that they kind of reach their audience, their potential audience, and are kind of stuck with that audience right now because they are not changing enough to expand expand their audience, I would say.
Cool. You know what other technology that NVIDIA deals in? Leakage.
Yeah.
So Final Fantasy 16 profile in latest NVIDIA drivers leads to speculation of imminent PC release.
Yeah, I mean it's normal. I mean it's a rumor, it's a leak. It's not gonna harm a lot of people. You know it's coming, right? You don't know when, but you know it's gonna come. So yeah, just one there.
Cool. Let's move on to the numbers then. Solid Q1 for Sony, but PS5 hardware unit sales down 27% year on year. So, Manu, we read last week that Xbox console sales are down.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the same thing, but PS5?
Yeah, I mean down 27%. It's probably related by the life cycle curve to the life cycle curve of the console. But yeah, at some point there's like you're reaching also your maximum audience. There are not so many, and there are still not many system sellers. Maybe like new games that like a game that would be the last iteration of that game would be on PS4, and now it will be a new episode on PS5, and the fans of that old IP would now jump in, like you had maybe with Red Dead Redemption. I think GTA 6 is going to be a huge system seller for all console, probably more for PS5.
Yep.
But beside that, there's not that much for people to jump in.
So historically speaking, consoles, like at least in the traditional sense, they top off at around 150 million after let's say 8 years ish. If PS5 is currently at 53 million, which I think is a big feat considering I don't believe they've had any price cuts.
No.
So that's really interesting in a way.
53, that's not the install base.
Oh, sorry, that's the games sold. I'm confused about that. The amount of consoles sold total should be around, I think it was 40-ish. If we want to trust
67.
VG charts.
Yeah, 46, it's expected to go to 67.
Okay. There you go.
And depending on who's doing the...
How long has...
5 months ago, they were at 55 million.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing VG charts is saying 60 almost.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's true.
To 60, yeah. But there's a long way to go to 150, right? It's
yes. We're almost 3 years in, by the way. So November 2020 is 2024. I'd say we're almost 3.5 years in, right?
Yeah.
So there is still a way to go. And also to top it off, a lot of people are still using their PS4s. They're still functional and deliver some high quality content. So the reasons to upgrade might not be as big at this current point.
The Switch has reached 140 million.
Yeah, the Switch is like another dimension, but also previous generation, I would say, not current generation. Okay, looking at the second item on the numbers, Sega acquires Stakelogic for about 141 million. Stakelogic, to my understanding, dabbles in casinos and casino technology, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, online gambling company.
Gotcha. Sega does have a lot of... Don't they do pachinko and all that stuff like Konami does in Japan?
I'm not sure.
But anyways, it says here Sega doubles down on gambling.
Yeah, and I mean they've acquired Rovio in 2023. They've also investing in movie and TV show adaptations. So they're probably trying to leverage their IPs. Maybe that's what they're also trying to do outside of just video games. And maybe gambling is also a way to do so. I mean, you can do Sonic slot machines, right? If you also want, and maybe it's I don't know. I'm not sure. It's very clear what the plans are for Sega.
By the way, Manu, this makes me a bit nervous for Sega specifically, and I might be misreading this. How big is Sega really? Do you know that?
No.
Because I just can't help myself but think about like a company that's trying to bite more than it can chew and try and is it called diversify. But I might be wrong here because they might be their core business. Is that still games? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so they did 2.3 billion of net sales last year, and out of that, entertainment content was 1.4 billion, which is mostly video games. Yeah. So yeah, I mean they are still significant, right? They have also
Absolutely.
treasure of IPs, treasure trove of IPs.
Absolutely. I would love to bring somebody on. Maybe Martin Lindell could be a person who can tell us a bit more about Sega.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next item then. Square Enix sales drop year on year despite release of Final Fantasy VII. Now, there was another item, I think you removed it, that Square Enix was still making money or something like that. Tell me, what's the truth here? What should we look at?
The sales are down and the profit is up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so you see that the way you want to see it, but I think the fact that the sales are down, it's like not a great perspective, and the fact that profit can be impacted by different items, right? I think it's given the fact that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you remember all the hype about the Final Fantasy VII remake, right?
Yeah.
For years we had people talking about it, and then the first part was released, I think was a huge success. I've not heard that much about the second part, which is Rebirth.
It wasn't as big, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah.
The hype.
So,
yeah.
And it's also difficult because players are like, should I buy the first one, or do I need to play the first one to play the second one? You kind of create some small entry barrier for a new player to the franchise. Because they're like, maybe I start with the first one, and then I don't. But I buy cheap because it's been released a long time ago. Then I'm gonna wait that the second one gets cheap. Also, I don't need to buy day one. So, yeah, that's not a great sign, I would say. But Square Enix has been. I think in Western world we have this image of Final Fantasy being such a huge IP, but it's not a guarantee for continuous growth neither. Right? It's still Final Fantasy, and then they've tried some other stuff. There are some other IPs, but it's I would say again they maybe don't have a track record of beating the numbers every single year.
What about there was also a mention of a restructure? So I'm assuming, and we know Japanese companies don't tend to let people go the same way that we do here in the West. Do you know what that restructure is all about?
There were layoffs more in May, so like 3 months ago, in US and Europe, and I think it's always a good opportunity to do layoffs when the numbers are not where they should be.
Fair enough. I'll move on to the next item. Balatro sales top 2 million units. So what's Balatro? It's I'm sorry. I need to know. You tell me. I can't know everything.
It's a card game everybody was talking about a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It was all over LinkedIn. So Yes, it's been an interesting indie game. It's like a it's poker. It's like poker, like the same combination, but you can have cards that will change um, the point counting. It's really interesting. It's kind of a cheap game. It's really fun. But the
Is
basic
it on Steam and all the other platforms?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's like I think Steam mostly. It's it's like a perverted version of poker where you can have like these jokers that would change the gameplay, or with there are a lot of twists in there, and it's like Slay the Spire. It's like there's a progression, like it's a
Yeah.
roguelite thing, and then you finish, but you unlock cards for the next run, and you can buy some bonus stuff, and that double the value of the card and things like that. It's very funny, and you can end up with crazy combinations, right? Of like you make thousands of points because you're just lucky. It's very interesting.
But
And
it's a game. It's not a casino thing.
no, not
Okay,
at all.
that's interesting.
It's familiar because it's poker rules, poker combination, but there's a twist and it makes it very fun to play. Yeah, and
Okay,
unexpected result outcome sometimes also. Mm.
I'll have to check it out. Seems
Yeah.
like a fun game. And then the last item on the numbers. Hive Interactive Media raises 80 million for publishing operations. So please tell us who or what is Hive?
I don't know. That was your piece of news.
Oh yeah, that was me. I'm sorry about that. But I guess what stuck out to me
Yeah.
on this specific item was that Makers Fund were part of this.
Mhm.
And I have no idea what Hive is really. Let's check that out and see what is Hive Interactive Media.
They are behind BTS. See, now we come back to the
Okay.
K-popization of the video game landscape, right? In this case, it's BTS, right? So it's the company that is behind the BTS, and they are expanding to video games, right? They are investing more in
Ah.
video games because it's all part of like entertainment and cultural product.
And for those who don't know what BTS is, that's the Korean pop group with a gazillion bazillion people. Is that correct?
One of the Korean, I think it might already be not
It's a boy band.
relevant. Yeah,
Oh,
it might
okay.
not be relevant anymore. That's replaced by so many
10
more.
years. They've been operating
Yeah,
for 10 years. That's
it's
crazy.
like take that. Take that's not relevant anymore for us European to do the same.
So they raised 80 million in a strategic investment, enabling it to expand its games publishing operations. That's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah,
I mean, Korea, generally speaking, and I'm going to travel to Korea later this year for G Star, but Korea, generally speaking, is investing more and more and becoming bigger and bigger in video games. If we go back 10 years ago, nobody was speaking about Korea, at least in the West. Nobody was speaking about
yeah,
Korea as a gaming hub.
yeah.
But now I feel like we're getting more games from Korea, we're getting more investments from Korea. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it for me the inflection point was maybe PUBG. PUBG,
Yeah,
Blue Hole. That's where they get maybe one of their first mega hits in the West. And for me, that's one of the first time I really heard about a big Korean publisher being so
absolutely.
successful. And I think since then it gave ideas to other companies in combination with the expansion of the mobile business, of course, where they are stronger on the mobile side. But I think the HD part are probably I would remember PUBG as being the start of a journey for the Korean publishers and developers.
Cool. Okay, I think we're at the end of the line here,
Yeah,
Manu. Um, so next week, are we recording? Because I'm in Gamescom next week, so we have to really time our recording.
yeah.
You're not in Gamescom, but are you available?
Most probably I should be available.
Okay, so you're probably gonna see me from a hotel room. We'll see how I manage that one and make sure that I don't forget my charger for my laptop.
Yes,
Um,
useful.
yes. So I guess that's the end of the show. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Manu, thank you so much for showing up. I really loved our conversation today, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hopefully, we can have the Dashing Dave with us as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, and see you next week.
Bye.